onslaught better than we usually do.
Alright, chums up.
Ready, guys?
Let's do this. Leroy Dragons!
Oh my god, he just ran in.
Hey everybody, and welcome back for episode 20 of LFR, the casual podcast for casual players of World of Warcraft, where we make the lore of Warcraft more accessible than Invincible's reins. Because I've been farming those things for longer than I can remember, and I still don't have them. And you guys get, episodes roughly every other week. Sometimes we take a little longer, but whatever. We're your hosts, Sirithe.
And Dracoris. LFR usually stands for looking for raid. Today it stands for let's fire rich people. Because how in the blue fuck is Bobby Kotick still in a job?
Is Bobby Kotick, is his actual name Robert? Because that would also work really well.
Let's fire Robert. Damn it, I missed one. Hey, this is on Sirithe. He did the notes for today. Thank you for joining us for another dive into an aspect of lore into the World of Warcraft. Today is the finale of our Arthas series. What happens to him after he puts the helm on? We'll find out soon. After some other stuff. Speaking of other stuff...
You love me! You really love me!
So, we actually have a review this week. We got a review from Immunization, who's one of the hosts on the great DNR, Do Not Relent podcast. And it was a 5-star review. And Immunization says, LFR is one of my favorite WoW podcasts. Been in my rotation since the beginning. Love the way they present the lore in smaller segments / by character. Makes it easier to digest, since Warcraft lore is a lot to handle. Oh, and I gotta mention the Discord. Tons of cool, supportive people in there. Thanks for the show and community, guys. Keep it up. Thank you so much, buddy. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm bowled over by that. Someone who's been podcasting for as long as Immune has, to make comments like that is just beyond the pale in terms of praise. So thank you so much, dude. Really appreciate it.
And if you like the show, and we only can assume you do if you're still listening, please do take the time to leave us a review either on your preferred podcast platform or on the Warcraft radio directory. Or you could just send us an email or a DM. Everything helps. Mm-hmm. We also have our lovely AOTC patrons who will be getting their names read out each and every episode until they decide we aren't worth their money anymore. So we've got Mud, Sky Shrouder, said your name right this time, ha, Anna, Gershom, and Discordian Kitty. Thank you so much, guys, for all the support. It means the world to us. And if you want to join them and our other fabulous patrons, you can please do sign up at patreon.com/LFRWowcast. So, this week in the news, we have the 9.2 PTR being data mined, and lots of cool shit coming out of that. But bigger in the news, Bobby Kotick still sucks, and he's still the CEO.
Honestly, dude, you say still, but all of this has come out since our last episode.
That's true.
We haven't actually discussed it at all, and I would like to put out a personal apology here, because the last time we spoke in any kind of detail about all of this, I was firmly on a very particular train, which was the train of, let's stop calling for Bobby Kotick to be fired, because actually he's just the CEO and probably isn't responsible for any of this bullshit. And you know what? I was absolutely stone cold fucking wrong. It has come out since that he is himself a perpetrator of harassment and God knows how much other bullshit. He actually wrote the email that we all gave Frances Townsend so much shit for, and had her put her name on it. I'd like to take a brief aside here to point out that Frances Townsend is still a piece of shit for unrelated reasons. But, at least one of the things that we were all having a go at her for can in fact be laid squarely at Bobby's door. He then had the hypocrisy to turn around and berate her and say that her email was... oh, God, what was the phrase? Tone deaf. Tone
I
deaf.
believe he called it tone deaf, yes.
Yeah, he called his own email tone deaf. That was fun. Which has spawned a spectacular meme that I saw, actually, which was, the Scooby-Doo meme where you pull off the mask and see what's underneath. And it was someone pulling off the Francis Townsend mask and it's Bobby Kotick underneath, which was brilliant. And I saw another one that was piece of shit, and then you pulled the thing off and it was like still a piece of shit, but different piece of shit. And that was quite good too. But yeah, so Bobby Kotick sucks, and people have been calling for his resignation since this came out. There has been another walkout at ABK since our last episode, and just it probably goes without saying to anybody who listened to the lawsuit episode or follows us at all, but absolutely are in support of the employees and the victims at Activision Blizzard King, and Bobby Kotick can go fuck himself with something rusty and blunt. I think that about covers it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, he's just... I never would have said he was a great person. No. I mean, he handled it poorly at the start, and while there were some positive moves, it looked like moving forward. I think he knew this article was going to break, and he was trying to get out ahead of it.
Oh, absolutely, and that's pretty much confirmed. So yeah, I as I say, I hold my hands up because I 100% fell for some of that, and I'll learn a lesson from that, and hopefully other people will too. And also, I'm putting my hands up for a reason. Accountability is important, and that's something that these motherfuckers at ABK should probably be paying more attention to.
100%.
Now, I should say as well, you mentioned the 9.2 PTR stuff, but actually the entire 9.2 announcement is since our last episode. It is.
Holy cow.
So yeah, we now know that patch 9.2 is going to be Eternity's End, which is taking us to a place called Zereth Mortis, which appears to be kind of the kind of primordial ooze of the afterlife. It seems to be where it all comes from, the God's workshop, if you will. And so that's going to be entertaining. And there is a lot of spoiler data mine stuff that's come out that I don't think we should really be going into here. But if you do want to hear more about that, I'm going to be doing an episode of the Third Faction fairly shortly with Demi to do the sort of more spoilery kind of talk. So if anyone does want to get on that, check that out. So we know the basic gist of it. We also know that it's going to be on PTR very soon. They said it was going to be not before Thanksgiving, and I believe you guys have had that party already, right? So,
yep, last night.
So I wouldn't be surprised if we could have a playable PTR next week or the week after.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, so that's going to be fun.
And I guess we have one other bit of news we can touch on, since it's going to come out like a day or two after this episode. But we have our bonus episode going on this week, and we've never announced the guest.
We haven't.
We could do that here, or we could surprise everybody, but it'll be in the episode title.
I'll tell you what, we'll do it now, but we'll do it now, and then if it gets cancelled between now and then, you can always just edit it out or something. So yeah, we are having Jin on as a guest, which is going to be a lot of fun. That's Jin from Live Laugh Law, formerly of Morally Grey, of the Council of Beerisfall, and recently the D&D campaign Tellor on his Twitch channel Jin's Joint, which I watched the first episode of and thoroughly enjoyed.
It's also on his YouTube channel of the same name, which is where I watched it, and oh my god, I laughed so hard. I am fully in love with Beans, and Beans is the best character. I'm sorry, everybody else, but Beans is the best.
I know people talked about wanting an audio version of it, but I think if you did the audio version, you miss the moment that is it Berserker pulled out the sword and shield. That was spectacular. But yeah, so thoroughly enjoyed that. So we are having Jin on for a bonus episode, which is going to be recorded approximately 2 days after this. So yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun, hopefully. And you should all check it out, which I imagine you will if you're listening to this.
Now, we should probably get to the lore.
And how is education supposed to make me feel smarter? Besides, every time I learn something new, it pushes some old stuff out of my brain.
So, this week is very different. I did the show notes, and therefore, I couldn't ask Lou for the umpteenth time, who is Arthas. Instead, I jokingly asked my wife last night as I was sitting down to do notes who Arthas was, and she said, and I quote, "I have no idea, and please don't try to tell me." So from that, I think you can guess she doesn't listen to the show. Her loss, or gain. It depends on how you look at it.
Definitely her loss. Definitely her loss. But please don't stop listening, everyone.
As we all may remember, last week we followed Arthas as a Death Knight. He killed some people, succeeded his father, got a fancy new hat. But what happens next? Did Ner'zhul take over? Did Arthas go raise more horses for his own personal stable brothel?
Yes.
And why, in Shadowlands, does Bolvar have the Lich King's armor? Let's find out.
Bow to your master.
So, last week we basically finished the Arthas Rise of the Lich King novel by Christie Golden, which is a fantastic book. I can't recommend it highly enough. And the book itself basically ends where the Frozen Throne expansion ends. Arthas beats down everybody's favorite scars, Illidan, and puts on the Helm of Domination. He sits down for a nice long rest. I think it's like 5 years or something.
That sounds good.
Right? Even if you're sitting on a frozen chair, that sounds good.
Yeah.
But if we look at the epilogue of the book, it gives us just a little bit more information on what's going on in Arthas' head during those 5 years. Mm-hmm. So in the epilogue, Arthas is sitting at a long table in what is described to be basically like the Great Hall in Lordaeron Keep. And there's two other beings there. One is an old orc. The other is a terribly sick young human boy. The orc basically wants Arthas to kill the human and walk the path more fully. But yet, despite everything Arthas has done, the boy just won't die. Arthas addresses them both. And he says, "You are me. You're both me." And directly to the little boy, who is... His name isn't said in the book, but in the game he also appears, and his name is Matthias Laner.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which is an anagram for Arthas Menethil. And he says to Matthias, "But you are the little flame that burns inside me still, that resists the ice." They talk more, and Arthas walks up to the boy, who holds his arms out to him as if to be picked up, and says, "It doesn't have to be too late." Arthas responds, "No, it doesn't. But it is." And stabs the boy in the chest.
Arthas has no chill. Despite sitting on a really cold chair for 5 years, he has no chill.
So yeah, we're just barely into the lore bit of today's episode, and we've also already got Arthas killing younglings. The orc, who is obviously Ner'zhul, really loves this, and says we are one. But then Arthas goes all Arthas on him, and stabs him in the chest as well. So, now we're at 2 deaths from Arthas.
Hey,
well,
equal
is it
opportunity.
deaths when they're like visions in his head?
It's equal opportunity chest perforation, one alliance, one horde.
The very last scene of the book is Arthas opening his eyes, now glowing blue, upon the frozen throne and saying, "It's begun." Which brings us into the Wrath of the Lich King expansion proper. The first thing our friend Arthas does when he wakes up, no, he didn't go find Invincible for a little fun. Get your minds out of the gutters. He just straight up chopped his own heart out of his chest. He believed anything that made him at all mortal made him weak. So, clearly that 5 years of rest, great things for his headspace.
I mean, this is what happens, right, when you live in a place that doesn't have coffee. He wakes up in the morning and just immediately wishes to rip his own heart out. Like, I know people who feel that way in the morning. I don't think Lou will mind me saying that's how she is in the morning until she has a coffee, right? They just need to get him like like a Tassimo or something, some kind of a coffee machine up there in Ice Crown, and everything would just be much better.
You say that, but yet you don't drink coffee.
That's why I always want to rip my... No.
So, after Arthas, ripped his own heart out and survived because death magic,
Standard.
he went and raised the ancient dragon Sindragosa, the first consort of Malagos.
Mm-hmm.
Then he decided, hey, you know what'll be fun? Let's go piss off the Horde and Alliance. And he sent the Scourge to attack both, which he mostly did to lure powerful heroes to Northrend. And boy, did it work, because we couldn't wait to get there.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he did so much here that he pulled people back to the game. In fact, our bonus episode guest coming up, Jin, came back to the game because Arthas woke up. You know, he wouldn't have started playing WoW if it wasn't for the fact that Arthas woke up and did this shit. So he literally summoned heroes into the game. It's very meta.
And what's funny is if he didn't summon Jin into the game, Jin probably wouldn't have started podcasting about the game. We wouldn't have met.
Yeah.
This podcast wouldn't be happening.
Yeah, it's
so
true.
basically, you wouldn't be listening to us talking about Arthas and shitting on him right now if Arthas didn't wake up.
Yeah, so he's entirely responsible for all of this, including every time we imply that he's into bestiality. You brought this on yourself, boy.
But the reason Arthas wanted to bring all those powerful heroes to Northrend is he wanted to corrupt them and use them against their own people. You know, kind of mirroring his own journey. Basically, he was lonely since he killed all his friends, so he tried to make everybody else as miserable as he was.
Makes sense.
Also, Arthas decided to lead his Death Knights against the Scarlet Enclave and forced the Scarlet Crusade from Lordaeron. You know what? I'm not going to shit on Arthas for that. Those guys suck. But I will shit on him for what he did next. Next, Arthas decides, well, that went well. Let's go kill all the Paladins now, because they don't like me anymore. And he sends the Death Knights over to Light's Hope Chapel.
But the only part that I take issue with is the anymore. Like, I think I said last episode, Gavinrad made it very clear most of the Paladins never liked Arthas in the first place.
Yeah, that's pretty fair. Despite an overwhelming numerical advantage, the Argent Dawn holds back the Scourge. Alexandros Mograine appears to talk with his son Darian, who had been defeated in the battle, and is also a Death Knight now. Well, has been for a while, but... And Arthas seals away Alexandros' soul, which... I wonder how that all happened with, you know, Alexandros being in... what's Necrolord land?
Maldraxxus
at the time, but, you know, it makes sense if you don't think about it.
I'm sure there is a reason for that. I'm positive, but it's escaping me at the moment.
Maybe he didn't go to Maldraxxus until after this happened. We don't know how long he's been there.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Time is not a construct of death.
True. Although I think we'll be finding out what it is a construct of very soon.
Yeah. After that, Darian tries to attack Arthas, but that doesn't go too well for him.
No. Look, dude, he's a raid boss. You can't just do it on your own. You need to wait at least 2 expansions before you can solo a raid boss, Darian. Come on.
However, our good friend Tyrion Fordrin comes to attack, and Darian tosses him the corrupted Ashbringer, which by that gets purified, and Arthas is defeated. Mm-hmm. He retreats, but some Death Knights, a lot of Death Knights if you look at how many are playing the damn game, break free of his control after this.
It's pretty cool because this is it's kind of like a mirror of what happened with Sylvanas and the Forsaken. You know, when these big hits to his power come, he loses control of people. You know,
yeah,
and it's interesting actually. All of the Death Knights have a hell of a lot in common with Sylvanas.
They really do.
Mm. If it were to transpire at some point in the future that Sylvanas were to maybe put on a reforged Helm of Domination, you could see how she might have some common ground to bond with these Knights of the Ebon Blade over.
Ooh, that would be interesting. Mm. Speaking of the Knights of the Ebon Blade, that battle led to the creation of 2 different groups. The Argent Crusade, which brought together the Argent Dawn and the Knights of the Silver Hand, and the Knights of the Ebon Blade. 2 groups of people who really, really don't like Arthas.
And oh god, what are they called? The Equestrian Society of Stormwind. They really don't like Arthas either.
The next time we see Arthas in the game, is when he appears when the Horde and Alliance are actually working together to siege Angrathar, the Wrathgate, more commonly referred to as just the Wrathgate.
Yeah,
the forces were led by...
Because fuck elven words. Seriously.
Yeah. Who likes elves? I think a lot of our listeners like elves. I'm going to take that back.
Not Arthas.
I play an elf.
Arthas doesn't
Jesus.
like elves.
That's true. Being led by Bolvar Fordragon and Dranosh Sourfang, they successfully got Arthas to come out and fight against them himself. Dranosh got put down pretty quickly, but then before anything else could happen, Grand Apothecary Putris unleashed the new plague on everyone below. The plague killed both the living and the undead indiscriminately, and would have continued to spread had Alexstrasza not flown over and breathed down her flames of life over the area. It had some interesting effects, but more on that later. You all probably know what I'm talking about already.
Mm-hmm. That's the whole scene, isn't it? With the whole, did you think we had forgotten? And all that kind of shit. Like, that scene to me is the biggest argument against data mining ever. Like, the impact of that must have been incredible for players coming across that for the first time and actually having that moment of like, holy shit, what's going on here? And we don't get that anymore, Shit gets data mined, shit gets spoiled, and then you know what's going to happen months before it actually happens.
It led into the whole Battle of Undercity as well, which was awesome.
Yeah.
You can't do that now. Like, even if you try to stay unspoiled, stuff happens.
Well, especially as a content creator, you can't. It's very, very difficult if you're running in the kind of circles that we're running in to not run into everything. And I mean, I felt pretty much honor bound to do the PTR for 9.1, which, I mean, it was great because it got me gigs on, a whole bunch of podcasts, which was brilliant. But equally, it did really gimp my enjoyment of the patch. Yeah. So yeah, Wrathgate's the biggest argument against that shit for me because I can't imagine how amazing it would have been to have seen that cutscene out of the blue compared to what it's like now.
As someone who played in Wrath, it was pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah.
So Tyrion finds out about Arthas cutting out his heart, and he finds out it's been taken to the Cathedral of Darkness. He sneaks in to see it for himself, but Arthas shows up and sees right through his disguise. So Tyrion decides to destroy his heart, which injures Arthas, but doesn't kill him. Because, Lord of the Undead and stuff. Mm-hmm. Probably doesn't have any blood flow, or he would have died when he cut it right out.
I mean, if you're having problems with blood flow, I'm pretty sure there are little blue pills that work for that. You don't necessarily need to rip out part of your circulatory system.
Yeah, especially the most important part of circulatory system. I mean... it's not going to end well for you.
No, it's not.
We next see Arthas briefly when the Alliance and Horde get bored of fighting a war to try and save all living beings on Azeroth and decide to start medieval times Northrend. I'm sorry. I mean the Argent Tournament. Sends in the Black Knight.
So I've got to interject here. I need some cultural education. What the fuck is a medieval times?
Basically, you go sit in a big old stadium type thing, and there's people out there that joust and have melees. It's the Argent Tournament, and you just sit up in the stands and drink and eat turkey legs.
Holy shit, that sounds cool.
It is really fucking cool.
I'm going to be frantically Googling for the rest of this podcast now. Sorry, you may continue.
So he sends in the Black Knight. He does some things, but we stop the Black Knight. And then he has a Nubarak attack us when we're, raiding and trying to, get better to go fight Arthas. I don't know. The Argent Tournament made no sense to me. Despite the fact that we've already killed a Nubarak once, he thinks it's going to go better this time. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. We kill the dead spider again.
Look, spiders are a lot of things, okay? They are creepy. They have lots of legs. And are creepy. But they've never been accused of being intelligent.
Yeah, but Arthas is the one who's hey, go attack them. Hey, go attack them. Hey, go attack them. Hey, go attack them.
I'm sorry, at any point in the previous 3 episodes did I imply that Arthas was intelligent?
No, you didn't.
He's a himbo. He's a big, evil, frozen-ass himbo. Never deny me, Jaina. Oh, fuck off, Arthas. So, there's a reason Sirithe's taken over for this episode, and it's because there's no way I would have been able to wrap it up in one episode. Sirithe is taking the reins here to say, no, we are not having 5 parts. We are finishing Arthas in part 4. Stop getting sidetracked by calling Arthas names.
So next, the Horde and Alliance take the fight to the Lich King himself. They infiltrate the Halls of Reflection, because apparently Arthas keeps his uber-powerful sword down in a weird basement while he sits up in the attic on his throne.
You mean you don't?
I don't have an uber-powerful sword, do
But
you?
if you did, you'd be hiding it in the basement and not telling me.
No, I don't have a basement, so...
That's what they all say.
Both the Alliance and the Horde try to speak to the spirits within Frostmourne, and Uther comes out. You know, the non-Bluther half. And he tells them that Arthas totally knows they're there, and he's on his way. And it's not to find out what they like on their pizza. He also tells them that there must always be a Lich King, or the Scourge will wipe out Azeroth. Kind of makes you wonder what we're going to find when we get back from the Shadowlands, huh?
If we get back from the Shadowlands.
Ooh, if. If is good.
Is that
Anyways.
a Hercules quote? That's a Hercules
It is.
quote.
I am very glad you picked up on that.
Love it.
That's my favorite Disney movie.
Me too.
Anyways, Arthas shows up, and he tells our old buddies Falric and Marwyn to kill the adventurers. Which I geeked out real hard when this dungeon first got into the game, and I saw them. I was like, oh, they're in the book. I know them.
Oh, dude, I've got to be honest. I'm not sure I ever really mentioned Falric or Marwyn in the previous episodes.
I think we alluded to them.
Yeah,
but I don't think we ever
So Falric and Marwyn
spoke of them by name.
Were basically like guard captains, right?
Yep.
In the Lordaeron army that Arthas commandeered and dragged to Northrend.
Yeah, I think it was one of them that was actually the guard he brought T to when
that's Falric.
Varian arrived.
That's Falric, yeah.
So yeah, Falric was there for a long time. I know Marwyn was a little younger, but he was also there.
Yeah, and these were like reasonably high-ranking soldiers in Arthas' army in Northrend, and he killed their asses and raised them again as Death Knights.
I think they may have been the first 2 he raised.
I believe
as Death Knights.
so. Yeah, Falric definitely was. Less sure on Marwyn, but yeah, and they basically became captains of his kind of Death Knight contingent. Lieutenants of his.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Arthas tells them to kill us. They fail because, we are the greatest of the murder hobos.
Absolutely.
And that's why we can never have player housing. Because how can we be murder hobos if we have houses?
Well, to be fair, in my case, the reason they failed was nothing to do with that. It was because, it was 3 expansions later and I was soloing a 5-man dungeon. 30 levels higher than you were supposed to be at the time. So that's why they struggled with me. I don't blame them.
No, that dungeon was actually difficult when it was current content. I remember spending time in there. I loved it, though. That's one of my favorite dungeons of all time.
I also thoroughly enjoyed the Dungeon Fables episodes covering the dungeons from this whole expansion as well. I think some of Ali's absolute best work in the lead up to the ICC raid and obviously the ICC raid episodes themselves.
Yeah,
really good. I absolutely recommend anybody to go and check those episodes out.
Yep. So after they fail, Arthas decides to chase the heroes down himself, and you kind of just run, and he summons ice walls. You kill them, and eventually you get rescued by your faction's specific gunship.
Dirty Horde.
Yeah, I'm trying to break it. I haven't even played a Horde character in a long time.
I'm proud.
Also, because I'm mostly raid logging at this point, but in 10.0 we might be getting cross-faction raiding for real, and then I'll have a decision to make.
Well, I don't think you will. Like, if 10.0 we've got cross-faction raiding, surely the entire point is that you don't need to make a decision.
That's true. But, I'll have to decide, do I want to switch my Warlock back to the Horde?
Ah, gotcha. No,
which I probably won't.
No is the answer.
Nah. I'm enjoying my Void Elfness. So the next time we see... Dracoris is holding up his Alliance beer mug to the camera. The next time we see our friend is in Icecrown Citadel. Arthas is torturing Bolvar Fordragon, who survived the plague attack thanks to Alexstrasza's flames. But kind of looks like Anakin Skywalker at the end of Revenge of the Sith now, except with all his extremities attached. But
It's like
he's
if
having
you
a
stuck-
really bad day.
If you stuck the dude from Hellraiser in the oven for a bit, that's pretty much what Bolvar's looking like these days. It's not good.
So eventually, the heroes fight their way through Icecrown Citadel. If you want to learn all about Icecrown Citadel, you can run it. But I also suggest, like Dracor said, go listen to Allie's episode on Dungeon Fables. She does a way better job than either of us could. And yeah, it's great listening.
Yeah, her Icecrown Citadel episode is multiple parts, I think. I can't remember if it's 2 or 3 parts.
I think it might have been 3.
Yeah.
I don't think she broke it down into the wings the way they were released, but I know it was multiple episodes.
Yeah, but it is a really good episode. Really good.
So eventually, the heroes make their way all the way up to the top to Arthas, and along with our friend Tyrion Fordragon, attack him.
Tyrion Fordragon.
Tyrion, whatever the fuck his name is.
Fordring.
Not Fordragon.
Fordring. I know all. I know
It's
all of
cool.
these Human Alliance paladins look the same to you, Sirithe. But
Especially when both their last names start
that's
with
extremely
Ford.
racist. I'm sorry. That is extremely racist. How dare
Their
you?
last names both start with Ford.
The fact that they are both male human paladins does not mean they are the same or interchangeable. How fucking dare you?
This is why I don't do the notes.
I mean,
And
you
know what?
did the notes.
I didn't even put his last name in the notes. I tried to do it off the top of my head, and that's why I fucked up.
You can't blame the notes.
Anyways, Arthas freezes Tyrion into a block of ice, and he fights with the heroes for a little bit, and then he decides, what the fuck am I doing? And one-shots everybody. Mm-hmm. He then begins to raise everyone a scourge. There's a really long RP, but the light grants Tyrion one final blessing to shatter these bonds.
You've ran that way too many times.
I have so many times. And he breaks out of the ice block, shatters Frostmourne with Ishbringer, and Tyrannus Menethil comes out and resurrects all of the heroes of the Horden Alliance. Which makes no fucking sense, because he's just a normal dude. How is he rezzing us?
Okay, so I might have an answer for that. From the stuff, obviously Tyrannus has never appeared as like a combatant character in any of the games, right? Like even in Warcraft 3, he's not like a unit or anything like that. But in the book, it's very clear that he's a very devout worshipper of the light. It is entirely possible that he's a priest. If you're giving him a class, it's entirely possible. In which case, it kind of makes sense. Maybe. He's big buddy of Uther's, spends a lot of time being pious with Uther and reading and praying with Uther and shit. It's entirely possible that he's a priest.
Yeah, that's actually... It could happen, I guess. Mm. But in the end, Arthas dies. He doesn't drop Invincible, because fuck all of us. And the Lich King duty is passed on to Bolvar. That is why Bolvar has his armor in Shadowlands. Well, I know, you guys didn't know that until we said it.
So what's kind of great about this is that actually the plan, as it were, was for Tyrion to be the Lich King, wasn't it? Tyrion tries.
Yeah,
and
Tyrion wanted to do... Well, not wanted to do it, but felt it was his duty.
And Bolvar basically steps up, and... there's the serious way of talking about this, where you talk about like sacrifice and duty and all this, and then there's the way I'm going to go, which is, look, Bolvar was crispy as fuck. He was really hot. He had all this fire inside of him, and he saw the opportunity. Right, he saw the opportunity. I mean, you've got to remember that he was lying on his front, dead, right, or practically dead, when Alexstrasza swooped over and burnt everything. Right, there is one place that fire is going, and it is right up his ass. Now, if you are Bolvar and you have had a life flame enema from Alexstrasza, and you've got the opportunity to sit on the frozen throne, I think you all see where I'm going with this.
And this is Alexstrasza before she got nerfed at the end of Cataclysm. So that was some real hot fire.
Yeah. She's spitting super hot fire and she isn't even a rapper. So the bottom line is I think Bolvar just wanted somewhere cold to put his flaming hot tushy. And the rest is literally history.
Oh, how uncomfortable does that helm have to be when your head is just giant burn scar?
I mean, I'm pretty sure he's got no nerve endings left, so it doesn't matter.
So, that's mostly all of Arthas' story, but he does appear a little bit more in Legion. Frost Death Knight's artifact weapon is the Blades of the Fallen Prince. To use these, the Death Knights have to collect the Shards of Frostmourne, and then they enter them and fight echoes of Ner'zhul and Arthas. Also, if you walk around Legion zones with these equipped, Arthas will periodically appear to you and say cryptic things. It's really good fun.
I don't know about you, but I am kind of the opinion that even though it's only 2 expansions ago, I think all this Legion shit is probably going to end up getting retconned. There are...
Like the artifact weapons?
Not necessarily all of it, but as it relates to Frostmourne. Because all these echoes and things that you see kind of fly in the face of what we've now been told happens to these souls. Like, Ner'zhul is in Torghast. Ner'zhul is in the raid, the Sanctum of Domination, as a remnant. There shouldn't be any echoes of Ner'zhul still within Frostmourne. Like, what we've been told now is that Frostmourne takes a soul fragment and gives it to the jailer, essentially. That's what it does. Like, that's what it did with Uther, for example. And all the other people whose souls we see in the ossuary of the banished, right? Like Anasterion, Gavinrad, people like that, right? That's where they all ended up. And I wonder whether that quest in Legion actually makes any sense anymore. I'm not sure that it does.
No, it kind of doesn't. But then, I mean, you can also go back to the Halls of Reflection and Uther coming out of the sword there.
Makes no sense. Yeah. I just wonder how they're going to make it make sense, or whether they're just going to ignore it and be like, yeah, suck it. I'm not explaining that.
Yeah, they're probably going to ignore it.
But I mean, my understanding, and this is vaguely spoilery, but I've got to say that I've got no context for this, but people are saying that there are models and things, data mine, that indicate that Frostmourne will appear in the new raid. And if Frostmourne appears in the new raid, all bets are fucking off, right? Because Frostmourne is supposed to have been destroyed and the shards reforged into the Legion Death Knight weapon.
See, I think they can hand wave that away with us, having the Primus now. And the Primus can just be like, let's make a new Frostmourne to use against the jailer.
I trust the Primus as far as I can throw the Sword of Sargeras.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I trust any of the first ones. Eternal ones,
yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, fair, there's ways around it, but I feel like that shit's getting retconned. I really do. And I don't necessarily think it would be a bad retcon. But yeah, that is, as you've said, is what happens in Legion. I'm just not sure how canon that's going to be going forward.
Yeah, definitely. And that is really everything we've actually seen up until now in Arthas' story. Mm-hmm. But I do believe there's going to be more coming in Shadowlands. So brace yourselves for rampant speculation.
Is this going to be like a Mega Dungeon thing? Can we like rampant speculation?
It is now.
Excellent. Good.
There may be minor PTR spoilers in this discussion, but I think honestly it's just going to mostly be the two of us saying what we want and or think will happen with Arthas as Shadowlands wraps up. Because in all the PTR I've looked at, nothing really with Arthas has been fully data mined or even confirmed. I know there's been some hints, but I haven't seen anything really yet. I could be wrong. That's very possible.
There's one thing, and what I'll do is I'll drop it at the very end so that we can kind of tell people to peace out if they don't want to hear it. So, I mean, for me, personally, I look at Shadowlands and Arthas, and I think we all expected to have seen more of him by now already. Like, you know, you had the Bastion short, the Bastion Afterlife short, which was the whole Uther and Arthas thing. You know, it showed the whole scene where Arthas killed Uther, and it revealed to us what happened with the Soul Fragment, and where Uther had gone and what his story was going to be, and this was huge. And it also showed that Uther and Devos threw Arthas' soul into the Maw. Something that I don't think we've mentioned, actually.
No, we haven't.
You know, when Arthas dies...
would have actually gone in right there, and I kind of forgot about that.
It's all good.
That guy.
So when Arthas dies, he has the whole thing where he speaks to his father and says he sees only darkness before him. And then what we now realise from that short is that the darkness he saw was the Maw. You know, or rather, it was very specifically, it was Uther reaching out and grabbing him by the fucking throat before yeeting him into the Maw. You know, not vengeance, justice. Spoiler alert, it was vengeance. Uther has since admitted that it was in fact vengeance. Which, hey, does at least show that old conservative white guys can grow and change, so that's nice. But, like, yeah, so Arthas ends up in the Maw, and that's a big deal, because going to the Maw in like a do not pass go, do not collect $200, do not even hit Revendreth on the way up kind of a thing isn't supposed to happen, right? Souls are not supposed to just be consigned to the Maw without the Arbiter's judgment. And that's a big deal in itself. Does Arthas deserve to be in the Maw? Questionable. Right?
Yeah, I think Arthas is one where I almost wouldn't... Like, Gul'dan, straight to the Maw. Arthas, I think there's an argument for Revendreth, because, yeah, he was shitty. Yeah, he did awful things. But most of those awful things, he did honestly trying to do the best for his people.
And even if he didn't, like, even if he was just kind of a piece of shit, like, they get to go to Revendreth. They do. Generally speaking, if you're a piece of shit, you go to Revendreth. Like, I
mean, Kael'thas. I think Kael'thas is a decent foil for Arthas in this point. He's in Revendreth.
Kael'thas is a piece of
Garrosh.
shit. Kael'thas is a piece of shit.
Garrosh is in Revendreth, and he's arguably more of a piece of shit.
Was in Revendreth.
That's true.
But yeah, like,
he's in a Hoover now.
Well, I'll tell you who I was thinking of. It wasn't even like a lore character who we're familiar with, but there's the chick. Is it? It's not the curator, is it? The one who, you know, when you're leveling through Revendreth and you have to read the Sin Stone of the... Is it the Accuser? The Curator? I'm not sure which one of those. I get the Venthyr mixed up, I'm afraid, like you do with Human Male Paladins. But there's that one Venthyr whose sins we read off, and one of them involves, like, murdering her own daughter.
I forgot about
and
that.
That person
yeah.
went to Revendreth, right? Like, if you can murder your own daughter and go to Revendreth, I think Arthas gets a pass. So I'm not necessarily sure how anybody ends up straight in the Maw. I don't think they do. I think they go to Revendreth on the way, generally. And Devos and Uther, you know, did a serious miscarriage of justice there. And so I think where Arthas is currently in the Maw in one way, shape or form, and I think at some point we are going to have to fix that, because that's not where his story should be ending.
No, I don't either.
Now, one thing that's interesting is that we have seen how Anduin's Mournblade was forged. Right, we've seen that cinematic.
Right.
And we saw the moment that the jailer reached through his little pocket portal thing, grabbed a soul fragment before we knew what they were, and had it hammered into the sword. And he said, every soul has its purpose. Now, who is everybody comparing Anduin to? It's Arthas. Who is Anduin looking more and more like every day as his hair grows white and he's wearing dark armour and brooding?
Wielding a Mournblade. He's stabbing people in the chest.
Hanging around with Sylvanas in a vaguely non-consensual fashion. Anduin...
Except this time it's the opposite direction.
Well, yeah, but still, right? There are parallels.
Yeah, very much.
And these forced parallels between Anduin and Arthas, I don't think they're just being forced in a meta out-of-game way. I think they're being forced in-game by the jailer. And I think that, personally, I hang my hat on this. The soul fragment in Kingsmorn, I am absolutely certain is Arthas. You know, I
agree.
They say, right from, was it last episode or the one before? Last episode, where they said that Frostmourne eats souls and the first soul it took was Arthas's. Right?
Right.
That's a quote from one of the Dreadlords, I think. Might be Tarchondrius. So, Frostmourne has drank of Arthas's soul in one way or another. And we know what that does to people. It makes a soul fragment, which gets sent to the Ossuary of the Banished in Torghast. That's what happens. So that's where Arthas went. And I am pretty fucking confident that what we see in that cinematic where the Mournblade is forged, I'm pretty sure what we see is the jailer linking Anduin and Arthas by putting Arthas in the sword. And I think, you know, the way that Frostmourne whispered to Arthas, I think Arthas is now whispering to Anduin. It doesn't hurt either that we have had the quests. We've been told, let's put it this way, with the raid that's coming now, we have been told that we're going to get up to Anduin in the new raid. And this isn't data mining, this isn't PTR spoilers, this is what we were told in the reveal stream, right? We will be able to get up to Anduin in this new raid. Then there will be a break, and you will not be able to go past Anduin that first week. There will be follow-on quests where Anduin teaches us something about domination magic that will allow us to get to the jailer. That's what we've been told. I wouldn't be at all surprised if those quests in between Anduin and the jailer revolve around Arthas and Kingsmorn.
Yeah, I think there's a high chance of that, especially since, like, they even said, like you said, the break is a lore break as well for us to learn how to fight domination magic.
I mean, and also, look, to me, the idea of us fighting domination magic and learning that from Anduin is suspect, right? Because the Primus invented domination magic. If the Primus is on our side, why the fuck do we need to talk to Anduin? It's going to be more than that. And I personally think it's going to, if we're beating Anduin and taking Anduin, either rescuing him or taking him prisoner or whatever we're doing, right? That means we get our hands on Kingsmorn. And I'm pretty sure that means we get our hands on Arthas. Which is interesting.
Arthas is Khadgar in 10.0, calling it now.
I would love that, if for no other reason than because, like, so Khadgar Khadgar deliberately fucks with us, right? He sends us out to get those nether shards. Is it nether shards? Where he's like, go and fetch 10,000 of these, and you do it, and he's like, oh, I only needed one, whoops, right? And Khadgar was just fucking with us, because Khadgar's a clever guy, right? He's just mischievous. Arthas is stupid, and I genuinely think Arthas would be like, so in order to succeed with this quest, I need you to tame 57 Stormwind Stallions. So we'd go out and tame 57 Stormwind Stallions, and we'd get back, and he'd just pick the one he likes the best.
Oh, geez.
Like, I could see that parallel, but like full on himbo Arthas, you know, tossing his hair as he sends us to find him a new horse. Yeah, that could be fun. But honestly, yeah, I think that's what's happening. I think we resolve Arthas' story as we resolve Anduin's. I think we rescue Anduin, and in so doing, get our hands on the Mournblade, realise that it holds part of Arthas' soul, and I suspect that we will consign Arthas to Revendreth at some point. I would be more confident about this if we knew we were getting a 9.3. The fact that it seems like we're not, makes me
They
worried.
basically confirmed we're not. They said 9.2 is the finale.
They said 9.2 is the finale of the story of the chapter. They didn't say there wasn't going to be a 9.3, and in fact they very specifically avoided saying that. Which makes me wonder if there is going to be almost like an epilogue patch at some point. It would be different. And it's
We're
not
going to the
something
Emerald
we've really
Dream.
done before.
Jen, get hype.
That would be amazing. But I mean, even if it were just like, do you know what? Here's a little patch where, you know,
Azeroth is fucked. Have fun.
Azeroth is fucked. Find your way out of the Shadowlands or something, you know? I don't know.
You gotta find a new world to live on, heroes. And guess what? They have houses.
There might be a way they could do it that wouldn't be ridiculous. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I'm fully on the we're not getting a 9.3 train. I'm just thinking, like, it seems to me that even once we've dealt with the main cosmic story of the Jailer's bullshit, like, there's still going to be stuff to wrap up in the Shadowlands.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
It's going to be weird if we just leave all of that undone. Don't know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. And maybe something that the Sepulchre, they're just going to hit a reset button and all the Shadowlands are going to go back to how they were supposed to be.
I mean...
We are fighting in Constellar.
That would be data mining. But yeah. I mean, look, what I'll say, and I'm going to just make this really clear now, anyone who doesn't want to know data mine spoilers can probably just switch off here, because you've heard the vast majority of the episode, and we're not going to be doing anything groundbreaking in the next couple of minutes. But, like, the data mined thing from this raid that's really exciting, that revolves around Arthas, is that there is a phase of the Anduin fight called the Fallen King, I think it's called. Shade of the Fallen King or something like that. And it uses Arthas's moves. It uses moves and spells.
I know he uses Defile. The Jailer also uses...
The Jailer uses Defile.
I know the Jailer uses some of Arthas's moves too.
The Shade of the Fallen King uses things like Remorseless Winter and stuff like that. And there's a whole phase called Kingsmorn Hungers, which obviously harkens back to the line Frostmourne Hungers. And so it seems to me that we are going to be dealing with Arthas in some way, shape, or form in that raid. Because the Shade of the Fallen King is an Anduin.
What if there's a phase like they did in the Lich King fight, where you go into Kingsmorn, like you went into Frostmourne, and you have to fight Arthas' soul to break the domination on Anduin?
That would be pretty cool, honestly, and it would work.
Now I want that, and I'm going to be real upset if we don't get it.
Well, what would be really interesting, honestly, would be if you went in, it was like Shade of the Fallen King, and you go in and you think you're fighting Anduin, and like, you know, it's kind of from a distance, and it's like, you know, like Druid astral form, where it's like you can't quite see them properly, you know. And it's a dude with a Mournblade and a Lich King-esque outfit, and you're fighting him, and you actually don't realise until partway through that it's not Anduin, it's Arthas.
Ooh, that'd be
or
fun.
vice versa. Or vice versa. You know, you think you're fighting Arthas, and you've got the vaguely Lich Kingy voice, and you've got lines that remind you of Arthas, and everyone's like, oh, we're fighting Arthas, and at the end it's like, no, Arthas isn't in here at all, it's just Anduin. Like, Anduin has gone a bit dark, you know. That could be cool in its own way. I think that's probably more nuanced than I'd give credit for them to be likely to put into WoW.
Yeah.
But there are ways they could go with this that are interesting. There are ways that could give us a satisfying resolution for both Anduin's story and Arthas's, and it would be nice. I have a horrible feeling that instead they're just going to piss everybody off, but
they're good at that. Yeah, I think I'm more excited for the Anduin fight because of the Arthas implications and just...
Me too.
What's going to happen than I am even for the Jailer fight.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Jailer fight's going to be amazing, I think, because...
We're going to be all over the place.
And I don't want to go too much into spoilers for that, I don't think.
No.
Because it doesn't really have any place in this episode. But it is going to be cool, I think. And
visually, I think it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, and I'm kind of sad I'm probably never going to see it. but
I'll stream it. You can watch it.
Yeah, that'll be far too late at night for me, dude. But I appreciate the idea.
There's VODs.
Fair point. Do you know what? I'm going to call that like 9 million to me for the Tyrion 4 dragon thing, and 1 to you for reminding me that VODs exist. But on that note, dude, I don't know. Have you got anything else you want to drop in there?
No, I don't think so. I think we kind of hit on everything that I think we know and that we suspect will happen that's poignant to Arthas' story.
Oh, there is one thing. So, one thing I kind of love is the fact that the WoW team are so committed to using anagrams when it comes to Arthas, right? Like you mentioned earlier, Matthias Lehner, who's the little boy that is an anagram of Arthas Menethil, and people who remember our Folk and Fairy Tales of Azeroth episodes, the second episode we covered the Paladin's Beast, the story by Madeline Rue. And in that story, there were multiple characters whose names were anagrams of all the bullshit going on with Arthas, right? And one of them in particular was Lady Meatharus, whose name was actually I Am Arthas jumbled up. and the interesting thing with that, and you know, we didn't really go into detail about this in the previous episode, but like Uther in 9.1 makes it very clear that actually he done fucked up when it came to Arthas. Like, he should never have pushed Arthas into becoming a paladin. And if he hadn't, maybe all of this shit could have been avoided, right? And he knows that. And he has accepted that in his afterlife. Now, during the Paladin's Beast story, which he conveniently forgot after it happened, he came across this lady, Meatharus, who was this, you know, this chained up dragon, essentially in human form. And the way he defeated the dragon in dragon form was by not killing it and by showing it mercy. You know, going against his nature as a knight, and instead showing the compassion that is required of him as a paladin. And the lesson is that had he shown Arthas that compassion instead of going with his usual approach to things would have all been very different. And I really hope that at some point with... And bear in mind, I've spent 3 episodes saying that I fucking hate Arthas and I think he's a dick, right? I really hope that the end resolution of this, if Arthas is in the Mournblade and if we get to pull him out, or even if he's just in the Moor and we get to pull him out, I really hope we get to show Arthas some compassion and give him another chance. You know, if Revendreth is where he's going to end up, I really hope he gets there via the compassionate route where we go, you know what, dude, here's the chance you should have had from the beginning. Here's your mess, clean it up, learn what you did wrong, atone for it appropriately, earn yourself a better afterlife, you know? And I think that is probably the best ending to the story of Arthas that we're likely to get.
Yeah, and I think I see like the character of Arthas being a little more willing to go through Revendreth and try to atone than like Garrosh was. Yeah. I think Arthas can kind of self-reflect and know like he did some things that were wrong. I mean, he did a lot of things that were wrong, but I think there's enough of a good person, of a sane person there to realize he fucked up. And maybe there is a path forward for him. I also can see it being, nah, leave him in the maw. He kind of sucks.
I would love a questline not too dissimilar to the one we got with Kel'Thas. You know, and not necessarily the same, because that would be boring as fuck for everyone who's done the Venthyr stuff. But like the thing with Kel'Thas, where you get to, you know, you get options. You look at me and go, oh, which one of these was actually his sin, to help him realise. And I'd love to see that with Arthas, because like there are so many opportunities to point out to him the things that we've spotted over the course of this podcast, because you don't spot them in yourself. You know, that's the truth. Generally speaking, self-reflection doesn't come without somebody outside pointing out your bullshit. And unfortunately, growing up as a Prince of Lordaeron, who was there to point out his bullshit to him? Not too many people. You know, he needs that. He needs someone like the accuser, like the player character, to sit him down, go through his memories and say, look, dude, this shit was wrong. Maybe the first thing you should say to a young girl after your first night together isn't, never deny me, Jaina.
Just maybe.
Maybe the best response after killing your fucking horse isn't to blame it on the weather. You know, maybe the best thing to do in realising that a servant girl is being abused by a lord isn't to send her back to him. You know, there are so many mistakes this guy made before we even get into, like, the whole nation-killing aspect of it. You know, before we get into shitting in the pool in Calphalas. You know, before we get into turning Sylvanas into a banshee, look at the mistakes this guy made in his everyday life as a ruler. Like, there is so much for this dude to atone for, and I hope he gets an opportunity to do it, personally.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think there's just too much. There's too much there. And also, I just kind of pulled into the voice effects on the new mic I got.
And I can sound like the Lich King. This is great.
I have no words for that. I'm a little bit jealous and a little bit scared, and a little bit kind of worried that you're going to decide to use that voice for all future podcasting. I'm also slightly worried that you're going to forget that it's on and use it at the start of the next show for no reason.
I already turned it off, so because otherwise I would have forgotten that.
I'm just looking forward to the next episode, starting with "Welcome to LFR, the casual podcast for casual players of the World of Warcraft."
Well, I think what I'll do is match it up to like what we're covering, so when we finally cover gnomes, it'll just be
"Welcome to LFR, the casual podcast for casual players of World of Warcraft."
I'm gonna have too much.
I'm done. Take us out.
Well,
You know what to do.
so thank you guys so much for listening. We went a little off the rails at the end there, but I had to show off my little Black Friday expenditure. I found a great deal on the World of Warcraft edition Yeti mic. And anyways, if you guys want to know where you can find us, you can find me on Twitter at Sirithe. You can find Dracoris, who is still
You can find
over there
Dracoris
laughing.
curled up in a ball crying at Smiting Titan.
And you can find the show at LFR Wowcast. You can also email us at lfrwowpod@gmail.com. And you can find the show at patreon.com/LFRWowcast. As always,
Thank you guys so much for listening. And we'll see you soon.
You motherfucker.
Bye-bye.
I am very uncomfortable with the energy that we've created in the studio today.